Stand Taller. I'm your host, author of the book Stand Taller. My name is Alex MacDonald, and this podcast here is designed to help you learn how to pivot your beliefs so that you can stand taller. If you want to conquer your negative beliefs and start living a life of possibility and victory, then you need to follow the steps this book and this podcast share. Thanks so much for tuning in. We're gonna have a great time. Hello and welcome. I'm so grateful you're tuned in to the Stand Taller podcast. You know, I was recently traveling and I saw a sign that said falling rocks. So I tried, and falling doesn't rock, falling hurts. I had a crazy dream last night. I was swimming in an ocean of orange soda. It was so delicious. But turns out it was just a fantasy. Now, there's this Mexican magician who tells the audience he's going to disappear on the count of 3. He says, uno, dos, and then poof, he disappeared without a trace. Now, my grandpa has the heart of a lion, but a lifetime ban from the zoo. That's all the bad jokes we have time for today. We're intentionally making these bad and hopefully getting your defensive layers down. We're having a good time, getting you in a good mood. We're having fun here. We don't take ourselves very seriously, but we take our mission very seriously. And so I'm so glad you're tuned into this. And I have a very interesting story to share with you today based on the information in our podcast, chapter 2 of Stand Taller. So there was a group of frogs that were traveling through the woods. And then suddenly 2 of them fall into a very deep pit. The other frogs, they crowded around the pit. And when they saw how deep it was, they didn't have any hope for these 2 frogs that fell in. They told the 2 frogs that there was no hope left for them and that they should just give up and die. However, those 2 frogs that were in that pit, they decided to ignore what the others were saying, and they proceeded to try to jump out of the pit. Despite their efforts, the group of frogs at the top of the pit were still saying they should just give up, that they would never make it out. Eventually, one of the frogs took heed to what the others were saying, and he gave up, falling down to his death. But the one frog, he continued to jump as hard as he could. He would jump and try to get out of that pit. But once again, the crowd of frogs outside of that pit, they were yelling at him to stop the pain and just give up and die. But this frog, he didn't listen. He jumped even harder. And he jumped with all his might. And he gave it all he had. And he finally made it out. When he got out, the other frogs, they crowded around him. And they started yelling like, did you not hear us? Said, give up and die. How did you get out of that pit? And that frog, he said, huh? I can't hear you. That frog explained to them that he was deaf. And he thought they were encouraging him the entire time. And so the moral of this story is that words have the power of life or death. But we can choose to be like that deaf frog and not listen to the negative, not listen to the heat of warnings and the give up and die and the things that we don't listen to. We can choose to turn that off, focus on the positive, empowering beliefs. And then one of the other things is, I once had a friend ask me, if you talk to your best friend the way you talk to yourself, how would your best friend feel about that? My best friend at the time probably would have punched me in the face because I wasn't saying very nice things to myself. And so one of the other things that you need to learn to do is to reframe the negative thoughts that you have. Think about what you're thinking about and become a great cheerleader to yourself rather than being one of those frogs outside the pit screaming at yourself to just give up and die, or any of these negative thoughts that we're going to refuse to have from now on. But when you remove that negative thought, it creates a vacuum. And so you got to replace it with the positive thought. And we're going to go more into identifying these empowering beliefs on today's episode of Stand Taller. Thank you so much for being here with us. All right, I'm so excited to dive into chapter 2 with you from the book Stand Taller. In chapter 1, we identified our beliefs, and it may have led you to some more negative places or some darker places. But on today, we want to highlight the positive and empowering beliefs. And so I'm so excited for you. So you can start to get in the right mindset so you can start having more victories more often, leading to bigger victories, leading to a much better life. Now, if you got to the far end of the spectrum on my last episodes, 1, 2, and 3, then you might be thinking, oh, I'm a straight up, irredeemable, and total loser. You might be thinking that there's absolutely no positive thing going on in your life. If you're on the other end of the spectrum, you might be thinking, I have the best life ever. I'm the greatest thing since sliced cheese, and it's not over till I win. I'm going to win. And then most people are somewhere in the middle of that spectrum where they're thinking a mixture of positive and negative, and they don't think super highly of themselves, but they don't think too lowly of themselves. Well, here I want to get you to think in a different perspective for just a few moments. So think about this. If you're reading this book and you live in the United States or Western Europe, please understand that a large chunk of the world's population lives on less than $2 a day. Now let that sink in for a second. Less than $2 a day for 12 hours worth of work. These people have to feed their families for less than $2 a day. These people have to house their families for less than $14 a week. These people have to live on so little. So if you were feeling sorry for yourself and you're probably thinking the world's out to get you and all the best things that life has to offer have been taken from you, well, you're more than welcome to think that way. But the reality doesn't match up with your perception because, truthfully, other people out there have it worse. Chances are, if you live in the United States, you're making at least $7.50 an hour. That's $60 a day. That's $58 over the amount of millions upon millions of people that are forced to live with every single day. I raise this fact with you because I want you to gain some perspective. I want to open the door for you to look at the things that are going right in your life. Here's another thing to think about. If you're reading this book, chances are you didn't just get hit by a truck. Chances are the earth did not split open due to an earthquake and you fell into that crack. Chances are you're breathing smoothly and things are pretty okay. Isn't that something to be thankful for? If you think that this is a small consolation, I want you to wrap your mind around the reality that this very second, there are people getting dialysis in the hospital. There are people waiting in line to get an organ transplant. Their days are numbered. Every breath they take is painful. Thoughts about death and mortality haunt them every single second. And yet, you choose to feel lousy? You choose to feel lost and oppressed? I'm sorry, but there are tons of blessings around you. In fact, your life is overflowing with blessings. You just have refused to recognize them. I want you to look at the things that are going right in your life. Put more specifically, I want you to look at the beliefs that you have about the positive things in your life. For example, you believe that tomorrow you will have a home. You believe that maybe you're a good singer, or you believe that you know how to draw cartoons, or you know how to crack jokes and make people laugh. Whatever it may be, if it's positive, that's what I want you to focus on. Regardless of how small, trivial, or insignificant it may seem to you, the fact that it's positive means that it's worth your attention. Focus on these. Again, my point here is to let you know that you already have empowering beliefs. These are the things going on in your life that provide flickers of positivity. Now, you may think that your life is this giant fog of negativity, disappointment, discouragement. Again, you're more than welcome to think that way, but please do not ignore the things that are going right. You already have these. Everybody has these. Even a person who only has one leg or maybe even no limbs has something they can celebrate, and they can tie that to an empowering belief. I need you to take a break from this book and this podcast and look for the things going right in your life and trace them to an empowering or positive belief. You already have these. The fact that you refuse to see them does not mean that they do not exist. So finally, let me bring this home. No life is totally devoid of positive or empowering beliefs. All of us have at least one positive belief that we have about ourselves. So, over the next 7 days, when we come back Monday at 5 a.m. or whenever you're tuning into this, we'll be back every week on Monday. I want this following Monday for you to have something on a piece of paper, some of those positive, empowering beliefs. Write down a list of If you only come up with one, fantastic. If you come up with 100, that's even better. But arm yourself with this list of positive and empowering beliefs. And then we'll see you back next week. Thank you so much for tuning in. Stand taller. All right, we come to that time, that conclusion of the show where I share in honor of Culture Shift Challenge some brand new music. As I said, music is a huge part of my life. I love music so much. And so I'm so excited that I get to share different songs with you. This one is by a young lady named Alessia Cara. I believe that's how you say her name. I believe she was on the Moana soundtrack. She has such a pure voice. But the reason I chose this song is because all of us have scars, but all of us can agree to ourselves that we are in some way beautiful. So as we're creating this list of these positive, empowering beliefs, I want you to sing along to this song and agree with her that you are a beautiful person. There's something about you that is beautiful. And so hope you enjoy this song. Hope you feel uplifted and elevated. So I'll see you at the top.